Welcome to the latest episode of Starting Nine here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Subscribe button will get you all of our other content, including Dono Daily. He's on here. Well, he changes the time from time to time, but he's usually on early afternoon. Also before floor, an hour before every Heat game. Post up 5 hours as soon as the Heat game ends. And our coverage on everything else, including F1, which was last night, the Canes, which were last night. Also the Dolphin shows and everything else that we do here, and all of our videos that we take from the press conferences. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Our friends over at All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them on Instagram, All Pro Construction Builders. We know in South Florida that a hurricane is just a day away. Well, maybe a little bit more than a day away, but it's coming at some point, okay? It's right around the corner. Always go to All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram, okay? They do the best job for you. They can protect your home or your business. They specialize in the impact windows and doors for residential and commercial properties. All Pro Construction Builders, not Allstate, is a state certified, licensed, and insured general contractor. They service Miami-Dade and Monroe, but also we've referred some people from Broward that will help you in Broward as well. They use locally made products, American-made, family-owned and operated. Reach out to Danny. Not only will you get the free estimate if you do that, okay, but also you get 10% off if you mention 5 Reasons. 305-484-4429. 305-484-4429. Don't wait for a disaster to strike. Protect against it with All Pro Construction Builders. Again, reach out to Danny and company there and mention 5 Reasons. Huge Miami Heat fan as well, so you have something to chat about while you're negotiating your price. All right, let's get to it today. Miami Heat are up 2-0 in their series. Of course, Philadelphia 76ers are now up 3-0. They won what is the typical Game 3 win on the road. This is how things happen. When a team is better than another team, and unfortunately, my prediction was incorrect on this, the Sixers are better than the Raptors right now. Part of that is the absence of Scotty Barnes. Part of that is because the Raptors probably played a little bit over their heads this year under Nick Nurse. Playing Precious down the stretch of games, having him try to hit closing free throws, probably not a formula for success. And the Raptors lost last night in what is a typical Game 3 for a team that is not as good as the other team. Okay, and that's kind of what the Raptors are with the Sixers, and it's kind of what the Hawks are with the Heat, although I think the disparity between the Hawks and the Heat is greater, which is this is how these series tend to go. The better team, the home team, which has home court advantage because they were better during the regular season. I hate to inform some of my media friends, but that's the advantage of getting the number 1 seed is that you get to play at home. And the other team has to adjust to you, right? That's why they play the 82 games. So the Heat had home court advantage in the first 2 games against Atlanta, and they did what we kind of expected them to do. You know, they had some challenges in Game 2, some of which were self-inflicted, but they won both games. They stifled Trae Young. They got great performance, obviously, from their superstar in Jimmy Butler. And we'll talk a little bit more about Bammer Hero, which we did on 5 on the Floor. We got into them extensively, so make sure you check that out. That'll be here on the feed later today. But the Heat did what they were supposed to do. And now what you try to do is win the type of game Philadelphia won last night. So many of these Game 3s are tight. We always see this. The team's down 0-2. They go home. They play in front of their home crowd. Toronto's a much better home crowd than Atlanta. Much better. Quarter of the people in the arena on Friday night will be Heat fans. I've been there many times. It's practically a Heat home building at times. Just like Washington, just like Orlando, and just, by the way, like Brooklyn. But Atlanta will probably be very competitive. They probably will do what Toronto did against Philadelphia last night, which is like, okay, you got one more bullet in the gun. Play it. Shoot it. Right? I mean, and we see that all the time. And we see the home team in Game 3 take a lead, and then it's, okay, is the road team, which is already up 2-0 and is the better team in the series, going to do enough, going to put up enough fight down the stretch to steal one? And if they steal it, the series is over. And that's kind of what Philadelphia did last night. You know, they were an abomination in terms of execution. James Harden, to me, he's not even a good player anymore. I'm sorry. I'm just watching that. Like, he can't get by anybody. Everything is just trying to get himself fouled. Maxey is better than him right now, in my view, okay? But we know what Embiid is, and Embiid made a great shot at the end, and they stole one. And now that series is over. That's where you're at. Okay. Philadelphia is going to advance. They don't play again until Saturday, by the way. So there's some time there. So the Heat will catch up in their series. But they're going to have a lot of rest if they can close that thing out in 4. And what the Heat have to do is what Philly did. Is they have to withstand what is going to be a much better effort from the Atlanta Hawks in Game 3 than we saw maybe in Game 1 when they were tired. They will put up a fight. And it's going to be up to Miami to out-execute them down the stretch and steal a win and just put them to bed. Because you do not want to play with your food here. You don't, okay? Trey is, he's at the stage. He's like sort of at the, the stages of Kubler-Ross. Like he's at like stage 4 right now out of 5. Like he's going to get to acceptance, okay? That it's not the officials. It's not this. He cannot beat this team by himself, particularly with the way that they're scheming him, okay? But you don't want to give them life, and where he gets to a point where maybe he breaks through in another game down the line in this series, okay? And then there starts to be this sort of momentum and this narrative about what he did last year. You don't want to do that, all right? Steal the one in Game 3. You're probably not going to win it by more than 5 if you do, but just get it somehow and close this thing out. Because now we got to start thinking about the bracket. And now we got to start thinking about the fact that Philadelphia is going to come into the next round relatively rested, more so than we thought they would be. I thought that would be a 6 or 7 game series against Toronto. It's not going to be, okay? So the Sixers are going to be feeling pretty good about themselves. Harden's not going to get in better shape in a week, all right? But they found some other ways to play. I thought Tobias Harris was really good yesterday, and he's kind of an X factor for them. They didn't have Tybalt. They won anyway. They won't have to deal with that against Miami because, we don't care about COVID down here. So it's not like Toronto. So you have to look at it like you're playing the field right now. This is not just Atlanta. This is putting yourself in the best position to get the amount of rest that you need and the amount of preparation that you need for the next opponent. If Philadelphia and Miami both finish within 5 games, they could open as soon as a week from Saturday. Okay, that's the earliest. And it could be in the slot that was going to be for a Heat Hawks Game 7. So you see they bump everything up. So you need to get as much rest as you can. You don't want to be the team fighting through 6 games while Philadelphia's sitting at home chilling. Okay? So I'm going to take some questions here today. I know there's going to be some stuff about the Oladipo Butler stuff. I got into this on Off the Floor. And actually, I just clicked on it. I don't know if Manny can put up the comments, but I'll go through them here. And the very first comment that I see is, there you go. What up with Skip saying there's beef between Jimmy and Vic? Skip's a fucking idiot. Next question. Voodoo, what do we got? He was giving Miami too much love and had to snap back to his regular hating self. I will answer this again. Skip's a fucking idiot. Keep going. Voodoo Vision. Maxey is a better player than James in the playoffs. That I would agree with. James is shooting, 34% in this series? That's about what he shot in the playoffs the past couple of times. Here's the thing about James, all right? Is that you've hit the stage with James where I don't think that his skill level and his talent, which is extreme, obviously, can overcome his conditioning. I think that's where we're at. He can't get by anybody. He's fat. He's fat. Like, it's just that simple. Like, he's not, this is not like, people used to say, well, James, he's just sort of bulky and he's this, and that's why he plays pretty decent defense in the post. It's not that. He's not in good condition. That's what it looks like to me. It's not going to get better as the playoff goes on. Aaron Andrews, who's more tolerable, Skip or Stephen A? I will say here's the difference between the two of them. All right. The problem with Stephen A is not Stephen A. The problem with Stephen A is that ESPN has turned over its entire network to Stephen A. That's the issue. And the other thing is Stephen A legitimately does have some sources. Okay. And he actually does have some sources among players, and he does have some sources in Miami. Skip doesn't have any of that. All right. Skip is just a carnival barker. This YouTube stream is going to get flagged because I'm just going to keep saying the same thing, Manny. Skip Bayless is a fucking idiot. I'll hold that one because that's an actual legitimate question. Look, here's the thing, okay? Skip doesn't know what's going on in Miami. When I reached out to people afterwards, they laughed at me for even reaching out. Good morning, Jay. And basically the answer was it's fucking bullshit. Here's the situation with Jimmy and Oladipo, okay? Has nothing to do with personality. Oladipo was trying to get his way back. The Heat, and Greg confirmed a lot of this yesterday. This is information that I've had also. The Heat were trying to give him the opportunity to work his way into the rotation, but they want to see where he was, not just from a health perspective, but from a fit perspective. Okay. When Spoelstra first tried it, and it wasn't just Oladipo's fault, but it coincided with a period of time where the Heat struggled. Spoelstra went to his leaders, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, and Bam Adebayo, and had conversations with them. So Jimmy was one of them, okay, but it wasn't just Jimmy. And the decision that was made by Eric Spoelstra, but in consultation with his leadership, was it was time to go back to what was working before. And that was Gabe Vincent, and that was Caleb Martin getting minutes. It also came with the tweak of putting Max Strus in the starting lineup, which is something that they all wanted also, not as a slight to Duncan Robinson, because of the layers of space that it would create in the rotations. It wasn't just the one move. As you notice, this was about Hero also. Every single time since they've made the move that Jimmy and Tyler have played in the same game, Tyler Hero has come in for Jimmy Butler. We noted this in the very first game, and we've noted it in every game since. Why is that? Okay, I talked to Eric about this. They want to get Tyler with some time to run things with Bam. Okay, now it hasn't worked as well in this particular series. I'll get into that in a second. But that's the reason for it. So it was about Jimmy not playing with a few other people. He does play with Tyler over the course of the game, but they wanted to give Tyler some minutes without Jimmy and vice versa. Okay, so there were layers to this discussion. During this decision, Victor Oladipo happened to be the odd guy out. And the fact that Vic had the 20-point game and the 40-point game, remember, in those two games, Jimmy Butler did not play, right? The ball was in Victor Oladipo's hands. That gave him the opportunity to do those things. That did not necessarily mean that Eric Spoelstra was going to go back to Victor Oladipo as part of the rotation, because for right now, what Gabe provides for them fits better with the other players on the court. This isn't fantasy basketball. So here's how I view it with Skip. He has no fucking information, okay? I think with Skip, what it is, okay, is that he's seeing Oladipo not playing, and Jimmy Butler is the lightning rod, and so all of a sudden they can't play. He doesn't want to play with him because he has a personal problem with him. At the very most, it's a fit issue, which they didn't have time to work out before the end of the season. It does not mean that you won't see Vic on the court with Jimmy at some point in some series. All right. Are we good? Is Jimmy's jump shot sustainable in your opinion? No, but it's better. I'll say this. When he shoots him in rhythm, he's fine. It's the step backs that are a problem. Even the people around him have told him, pretend, even when someone is not standing in front of you, that someone is, and they have their hand up so that you get some arc on your shot. We've seen, the thing that's been encouraging to me about a couple of three-pointers is he's gotten up. Okay, he's not shooting just a set shot. He's gotten up. He's gotten some arc on the ball too. If that continues, he has a chance to be in the 30s as a three-point shooter. But I mean, I think it's crazy to think this is sustainable. You don't want him relying on it. But it's like Dwayne to a certain degree. I mean, Dwayne could make them in big moments if he was in rhythm. Purple shirt guy can attest. All right, let's go. What else we got? Who's going to bounce back in game 3? Tyler Bam. We just discussed this on 5 on the Floor, so check out the episode that I did with Alex. I will say this. I think it's going to be Tyler. I think that Heat fans would feel more comfortable if it's going to be Bam. Bam doesn't look right to me right now. I think part of it is just, I don't know. He didn't have any symptoms from COVID. I know that. He doesn't look like he has his normal energy. I also think the foul trouble, which some of that played into the foul trouble, but the foul trouble caused more of it, where he wasn't on the floor as much. They got out of their rotations in game 2, so maybe that changes a little bit in game 3 if he just doesn't get in the foul trouble, which is not something that typically happens to him. But what we got to worry about going into the next round is foul trouble when you're dealing with Embiid. So he's going to have to protect against that. I think Tyler is going to get going in the next game. I think part of the problem with Tyler in game 2, and I said this on 5 on the Floor that night, is that, again, the rotations were different. He was playing a lot with Gabe and Kyle, and it looked like he didn't know when to go, when not to go. Tyler is better when they clean out the other guards sometimes, and just the ball's in his hands, and he's playing pick and roll, and he's getting in the paint, or and he's hitting that floater. Like, I think Tyler's going to be fine. I don't see anything. I thought Tyler was better in game 2. Bam, to me, is a little bit more of a concern. Davey comes in. They ran out of Lakers storylines. They did. I'll get to this. That's the Celtics. They did run out of Lakers storylines, but they found a way to make something about the Lakers. They made the Nets Celtics series about the Lakers on First Take because they somehow got a way to talk about how the Lakers took Lonzo Ball, Magic to Lonzo Ball over Jason Tatum. So that they will always find a way. Purple shirt guy. Yes. I don't know what opinion on the Nets and the Celtics. Celtics are a better team. I mean, I picked them before the series. I just think the Nets are not well schemed. They're not well coached. And that's Ben Simmons isn't going to save them from that. I'm a great admirer of Steve Nash. He's not ready to be a head coach at this level. He's just not. He didn't do anything last night. There were no adjustments made in the entire second half. Now, part of it is, if Durant's going to play like that, but you've got to make adjustments to get Durant free. They didn't do anything. I mean, Boston's whole strategy is we're just going to bully Durant. And through 2 games, it's worked. So, Udoka is a rising star as a coach. I mean, look, we talked about Brad Stevens, and there were a lot of jokes. Who's better, Brad Stevens or Spoelstra? I think that conversation has been settled. But Udoka was really highly regarded around the NBA. I think he's done a fantastic job this year. Like they're really, really well coached. I mean, they've done this without a true point guard, and they're going to be a problem for the Heat if the Heat see them in the Eastern Conference Finals. And with the way Milwaukee's going right now, it's possible. But I just, to me, Brooklyn, I'm glad Goran had a nice game. I love Bruce Brown as a player, but Drummond's unplayable down the stretch, and they're not well coached. So that's the issue. Andrew asked if there are any concerns for Bam. Like I said earlier, I think my concern for Bam is simply, I want to see him look right kind of physically. I didn't see, just being at the game 2, he didn't look like himself. I want to see him play with energy and passion. Starts on the defensive end, but then I think there'll be some more attacks for him that he can take. But this series, they can get by with this Bam. They're not going to get by with this Bam against Philadelphia. Jay Smith, will the turnovers be a concern as we go deeper into the playoffs? I think they will cut back on some of them. Tyler's turnovers concern me a little bit, especially with some of the ones in game 1 that were kind of unforced. But they've gotten by with the turnover problem all year. Philadelphia at times can be a high turnover team also, although less so with the ball in Harden's hands more often. So I feel like some of that will counter itself out. I think Miami's done a really good job in terms of transition and their attacks off of turnovers. So if they make up some points that way, they'll probably be okay. Good question from David. Do you think we'll see more of Caleb Martin on Trae Young in games 3 and 4 in Atlanta? I don't think that was the intention. Again, a lot of this was foul trouble related. And the foul trouble to Bam forced Erik Spoelstra to not play Duncan as much because he couldn't protect Duncan defensively with Bam. And that's one of the reasons that Caleb got those minutes. I'm not entirely sure Caleb's going to get the same menu in the next game, but I do think there will be some role for him. He's kind of their 10th man Swiss Army knife. The other thing is Erik doesn't like to use the same scheme twice in a playoff series back-to-back. I think there'll be something new on Trae in game 3. I think he wants to keep giving him different looks, and then he can go back to everything if he needs to, in games 4 or 5. This comes in from Black Mamba. Do you think Bam is still thinking of the deep why drama, and thoughts on that? It's possible. He takes this stuff very personally. It's hard to do what Dwayne used to do. Dwayne would take a motivational slight and he would instantly apply it. Like he would channel that energy in a really positive way. I'll just put it this way. Dwayne's more of an alpha personality than Bam. It's not Bam's natural personality to be that way. So maybe it does affect him a little bit more. I didn't think that it affected his look. I thought defensively he was fine in game 2. He wasn't as good as he's been, again, because of the foul trouble. But I think also part of this is offensively, if he's in foul trouble and Jimmy's got it going, Bam's natural personality is going to be to get out of the way. He's not going to demand the ball. When Bam has been aggressive, a lot of the time it's been when Jimmy has either been out of the game or some situation like that where we've seen him go. He's not going to do it on a game that Jimmy's got 45. So I think Tyler will in the next game. I'm not so sure about Bam. What else we got? Let's go for 3 more here, Manny, and then we'll close it up. Is Dedmon on the team next season? Mateo, good to see you. If he takes the minimum, I think they'd be happy to bring him back. I think they want to see where they are from a developmental standpoint with Yurt. I think obviously Yurt needs a lot more work defensively before they can count on him as a rotation player. But there are also a collection of bigs that Pat Riley has looked at in the past that they will go back to. Contractually, as we'll get to all of it. A lot of this kind of depends on what they do with Oladipo. If he wants to stay, if they're going to pay him through the bird rights, how much into the tax Mickey wants to go, because the tax is coming with a hero extension. So, but they like Dwayne, and I know that the players like Dwayne. You can see with the way that they react to Dedmon when he does something. He's one of the most popular players in that locker room. He's a guy I think they would like to keep around. I don't think they want to use him as much as they used him this year. I think it was too much. Are we all still waiting for Kyle Lowry's playoff breakthrough? It's funny. Kyle's got a little under the radar for the first two games. We talked more about Bam and Hero. Kyle is going to defer to Jimmy. If Jimmy's got it going, Kyle's going to let him go. I mean, that's pretty much it. But I think it comes down to this. It's when the question I asked Jimmy after the game, where he said, I'm a different player than I was in the bubble. So I asked him how specifically. He talked about it more in the team context, that he has Kyle, and so he doesn't have to handle as much as he did in the bubble. Slight to Goran, but we know Goran wasn't really a true point guard in that sense. I think they're comfortable with Kyle just doing what he's doing until they absolutely need it. So I do think there's going to be playoff breakthroughs from Kyle. He looks fine to me. I haven't, he looks the same as he looks in the regular season. He's just is not as aggressive as he was for maybe that 2 or 3 week stretch towards the end. Two more. Good question from Mitchell here. Why don't they play Vic at the end of game one? The third one, play him to play the end of the bench, just to get him going and more ready. I've asked some people about this. Why don't they play Vic in sort of these, these garbage time-ish type situations, or late in the game, or even just to kind of change the dynamic? I've been given a couple different answers. One of the answers I've been given is, in the garbage time situations, they don't want to insult him, frankly. Okay, like that. For garbage time, you don't want to put out a guy out there just to get a little work who's been a 2-time All-Star and all that. But I think part of it too is just from a health perspective. If Vic's going to play, he's going to play. They want him to be able to get warm. You don't want to just throw him in there cold for 3 minutes and then something happens. So I think the way that we looked at it, okay, he'll be this sort of X factor game changer. I don't think they view him that way. I think they view Caleb that way. I think Oladipo's minutes will come. If somebody's out, okay, certainly if Jimmy's out, Vic's going to play, okay? But also if there's just somebody who's been ineffective and they want to change. Let's say Gabe goes through a 2 or 3 game stretch where he's not good. Or let's say the matchup doesn't favor him. Let's say Duncan is struggling. Then I think that you could see a situation where Spoelstra goes into a game with a plan of playing Vic. I don't really think you're going to see him just throw him in. The Heat have learned their lesson with this. I don't know if you remember the 2012, I think it was 2011 playoffs when Udonis came back. Everybody remembers the game against Chicago where he went nuts and he had a tremendous 10 minutes. But everybody forgets he actually came back the series before, I believe it was against Boston, and he hit the side of the backboard and he had to be pulled back. I think that they're going to be very careful with stuff like this. This is from Devin, Super Chat Money. We always take the questions. Ethan, do you think Jimmy can carry the Heat to the finals? I think you got to reframe the question. I think he'd be part of a group that carries the Heat to the finals. I wouldn't get carried away with the one game and say that's the Jimmy Butler that they need. They don't need that Jimmy Butler this time to get to the finals. They needed it last time in the finals because they didn't have anybody else. They don't need that. If they're going to get to the finals, just flat out, and I suggest you guys listen to the 5 on the floor, Bam and Hero are going to need to be more impactful than they've been in the first 2 games. It's not – Jimmy, to me, is a top 10 two-way player in the league, but he is not get on his back and ride him for 2 months here to the finals, okay? That's not the stage of his career he's at. It's not how this team has been built, and he said it himself, so it can't just be him. For everybody who's asking about Skip Bayless, my answer is the same. He's a fucking idiot. What else we got? Last one. Is Jimmy being the hero sustainable long-term? We see him get gassed out in the bubble. Yeah, that's kind of my point. They don't want that this time. Now, they'll take it if he's got a performance, but here's the thing about Jimmy. I didn't think he overextended himself in the last game. If you can have an easy 45, that felt like for him an easy 45. It didn't feel like the bubble. It didn't. It felt to me like, he was getting to his spots, honestly. I mean, the 3-point shooting, again, that's going to be variable. But everything else, I just thought he looked under control. And I also thought defensively, first 2 games, he's been great. Really, really, really good. So you just want Jimmy to settle to his averages eventually and just be himself. They're going to need to win a championship or to get to the finals. And we'll see what happens with Phoenix. Maybe the road is opened a little bit. But even if you're going to beat a Golden State or a Memphis, if you're going to win the finals, Tyler and Bam need to be, like I said, more impactful. That's really how it is. Andrew, we appreciate it. Guys, sign up for Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. That keeps us going here at the network. That's our biggest sponsor, okay? And it's fun. And they give you $100. If you put down $100, they will give you $100 to play with. That's pretty cool. So go prizepicks.com, use the code 5. You can pair the NBA players with MLB or NHL or MMA if you want to, and they can do all of that stuff. Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate it. Just an old goat. Manny, thank you for producing. We're going to try to do more of these. I don't really think I'm going to do a lot of guests on Starting 9 during the playoffs. Just 15, 20 minutes, your guys' questions, and we go. Have a good one.